in the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. And I loved this. This was a audio download from Libro FM that I got as one of their influencer people. I told you earlier that I read something else from Carmen Maria Machado, and this is the other thing that I read. I originally heard about this book from Jesse over at Bowties and Books. I know they loved this, and I thought, oh, I should check this out. It's a sort of genre-bending memoir about her experience in this relationship that eventually becomes very abusive with a former girlfriend. I think this book is doing very important work. It's also stunningly written. Her writing is just amazing, and there's so much richness to this book. The structure of this is unlike anything else that I've seen before in a memoir, and I just think it worked so well. She imagines this sort of dream house that could be a physical place or an imagined place, but this dream house that starts out as this beautiful place with this new relationship and slowly becomes kind of a house of horrors. And you have these short chapters that each use a different genre as a frame to look at a different perspective at part of the relationship. So you have Dream House as fantasy, Dream House as pulp fiction, Dream House as musical, Dream House as lesbian erotica, many, many, many things. And they're all very brief chapters, and it contributes to this sense of unease and on being almost like on a runaway train speeding towards some ending that you know is not going to be good. And it is so powerful, and I think the important thing that she's doing here is shining a light on the different ways that domestic abuse and violence can present itself, and specifically within queer relationships, where often, especially between two women, it's either covered up, not taken seriously, or ignored, or people think that it can't happen, and that simply isn't true. And she really brings a lot of that to the surface, and it's emotionally raw and painful, but also so powerful and so beautifully written. And it's really the story of her relationship with this woman that slowly degrades into something that is really horrible and terrifying. And one of the things that I think this shows really well and talks about is that domestic abuse and intimate partner abuse doesn't have to be physical, that sometimes you might not see physical signs of it, but that there can be other things. There can be emotional and psychological abuse and gaslighting. You see a lot of that represented on the page. It is pretty intense. Again, check trigger warnings for this one if you're in need of that, because there's a lot of intense content here. But I think it's so important, and it really is exploring power dynamics and the different ways that people use and abuse power, and the fact that like men don't have a monopoly on the abuse of power, and also how social structures can be a form of power, which is really interesting. She writes from the perspective of being a fat Latinx woman, a fat brown woman who has been told that in relationships she lacks power because of her fatness, that she is less desirable, less able to get a good partner. And so having a girlfriend who is blonde and thin and white who has that kind of power can then use it as a way of saying, oh, well, you should be lucky to have my attention. You should be lucky to have me wanting you. And I've seen this play out in heterosexual relationships as well, where those sorts of things are abuses of power. Anyway, it's an incredible, beautifully written, powerful book, and one that I think I might try to get my hands on a copy of physically at some point. I did listen to this on audio, and she does actually read it herself. The author reads it, so I would recommend it on audio if you do audiobooks. Incredible book, so powerful. At this point, I will probably read anything that Carmen Maria Machado writes. I easily could say a new favorite author. Loved it. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.